it's Dr. Dunaway here with Chiro Strength, and today I'm here to talk about posterior shoulder pain. Now this might be overhead pressing, you might feel this. You might feel this if you're an overhead athlete kind of following through, maybe a boxer on a lead hook, but oftentimes you'll get this posterior shoulder pain that's kind of nagging, and it hurts to get back into this externally rotated, flexed and abducted position. So if we have that issue, then we're often dealing with a little tenderness in the tendons back here. Call it tendonitis, tendinosis, whatever you want to call it. But essentially what we're going to do is we're going to use a band. I have a little CLX band here, and I got a little shim that I'm going to put in a doorway. Oftentimes I like to be able to show this in a doorway here. If you have an anchor point like a squat rack, that's probably better. But I want to be able to show you that you can do this at home. You don't need a whole lot of equipment. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is work on eccentrically loading the internal rotators. So the subscapularis, the lat, all those muscles that should be controlling this externally rotated position. So obviously, these muscles that externally rotate will help you get there, but just as important as these muscles that are contracting to get there are these muscles that put the brake on that motion. And if the internal rotators aren't eccentrically loading properly, then what you'll find is that ball and socket won't get back into place in a really good centrated position. So I'm just going to anchor this at the top of the door first. And barring any hilarious bloopers, that should stay put and this shouldn't be an issue. But what we talked about was getting into this position right here. I have my elbow supported because I don't want my deltoid or my supraspinatus doing a whole lot. I really want to focus on the internal external rotated position. I'm going to get as if I'm getting ready to do a press or into the sensitive position. If it's too sensitive to get all the way in this position, I can just move my body a little bit. So now instead of this completely in this 90-degree angle, I can come to a more of a 45-degree scapular angle to make it a little more comfortable. But for sake of the video, I'm going to start here. So eccentrically loading the internal rotators. I'm going to come into internal rotation, get a good posture, and then slowly control as this pulls me into external rotation. So the band is pulling me into external rotation. These external rotators aren't doing any of that, so it shouldn't be painful. They shouldn't be contracting at all. But these internal rotators are really making sure that I get into this proper position. So we're going to do that for 10 or 15 reps as long as I don't have any pain. And I'm only going to work the eccentric portion. Now after the first round or two, if I feel like I can, then I can come down with the concentric portion as well as slowly raise up with the eccentric portion. So again, this is concentric. As I go back, that's eccentric. I'm going to work only the eccentric component first. Eventually, if you do have a tendonitis or tendinosis, the only way to really recover from that is finding a good entry point into load. So eventually, I do want to load these muscles up here. So let's say I can do that for a couple of days, that shoulder starts to feel a little better. Now, before I do any type of forced external rotation, I'm going to end up wanting to load that up to prep that tissue first. But if I'm doing that, I want my anchor point lower. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this anchor point to be lower underneath the door. And I'm going to do the exact opposite position. So I'm going to start in the externally rotated position now and slowly being pulled into internal rotation. And these muscles back here now are going to become the brakes. And again, for the sake of the video, I don't want to talk away from the camera, so I'm going to come into this 45-degree angle, and then I'm going to slowly lower my arm down, and I would again warm up about 10 to 15 reps of this with a resistance that's not too fatiguing, but you can really feel these muscles working. It's not necessarily a strength exercise as much as it is kind of a motor recruitment and just kind of an awareness exercise to make sure that those muscles are firing and wiring together prior to exercise. But those two exercises, the eccentric loading of the internal rotators and the eccentric loading of the external rotators, are a good 1-2 combination to get over this shoulder pain. And like I always say, there's always some assumed risk with exercise. So if you feel like something's majorly wrong or something's torn or this feels just worse after you get done doing this, make sure you contact a professional, make sure you get somebody that can assess you and get you on a good treatment plan. But if you have any questions about these drills specifically, comment below, email me at drdunaway@chirostrength.com. That's Dr. Dunaway at chirostrength.com. And like I always say, don't just mend, transcend. Thanks.